Alright, Travis Wing Goodsell. I'm back temporarily. There's been some delay complications in shutting down the church permanently. Oh, it's God, Travis. See, you're the evil apostate. That's what we're going to talk about during this one, is brainwashing. Brainwashing. I've already done the one video, and that seems to have been kind of popular for my channel. How brainwashing works is a simple process. I mean, yeah, there's the electroshock therapy, drugging, stuff like that. We're talking about mass groups of people brainwashing. So the church, they claim 16 million got baptized, even though there's now only an estimated 3 million who are actually active. So sorry about the noise from the road and from the air unit. I'm not a professional person here. I'm not trying to entertain you. I'm just a regular person like you guys, trying to communicate with you using reason rather than fun and exciting, entertaining crap. But that's part of the brainwashing process, is a distraction method using entertainment and professional video quality and blah blah blah. And so if you didn't know, all the Oscars, all movies are trying to convince us of the position that they're presenting in their movie story. Some are more obvious to tell than others. For example, Last Blood with Sylvester Stallone. He concludes, as he's shot, beaten up, and rocking in his rocking chair at the end of the movie, he explains not only that movie, the philosophy that he's trying to present, but to sum up his whole series from First Blood to Last Blood. But not every movie is talented enough to clearly explain the message they're presenting. But that process is not what I'm going to talk about either. The process that I'm talking about is one that has gone in secret among us. Stanley Smith Stevens, Mormon boy from Utah, who's now former, died a long time ago. He's responsible for the categorization of that process, this brainwashing process, and it's used in psychology. Psychiatrists, therapists, especially here in Utah, because this is where he's from, they embrace it because they think they got something. Yeah, we can fool the judges and the courts and the legislatures and the community and blah 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 by using his categorization of this brainwashing of mass groups of people. And the way it works, as I've explained in other videos, is that there's the dichotomous categorization. If you saw Real Time with Bill Maher last Friday, he explained it just using binary instead of dichotomy. But he understands the brainwashing techniques that are being used. And dichotomy, or in computer terminology, binary, you have only two options, one way or the other. There are no other options. You can't choose other options because there are none. That's why in philosophy it's referred to as a dichotomous fallacy, because there are obviously more options, but the person is arguing only two options are available. And you can see it in certain movies or TV shows where the protagonists are claiming, "You're our only hope." Well, no. But that's the whole point of the brainwashing, is that according to the author of the movie, they've made it so that, yes, there are this dichotomous choice that only the superhero can save the day. That there are no other options, even though there are other options. And we see that kind of brainwashing on the masses in government. How many party groups are there that run our government? They use the word bipartisan. So there are other methods of running a government, one of which is monarchy, which America has just been coup d'etat to return to. And no, they don't have to do a full-on "I am now king" and have a coronation ceremony, and all Democrats are hanged on the no, it's not hung, it's hanged on the gallows. People are hanged, things are hung. But no, this was what Hitler did. He ran under the Socialist Party dichotomy, won the election, and transformed the party into the Nazi Party. And everything, for the most part, stayed the same. People still went to the stores to buy their food and clothes, and yet Hitler was making policies of, hey, we need to protect ourselves, and Jews need to be locked up in Auschwitz, so we've got concentration camps for their protection, and blah blah blah, and all that garbage. But in the church, we also see it, because the church claims they're the only true church on the face of the earth. And so every other church, therefore, is the church of the devil. And they justify it by quoting the Book of Mormon passage that says there are only two churches. Even though there's lots of other churches, there's only one true church. Now, Mormons misinterpret that, because assuming that a God physically exists in reality and manifests himself unto mankind and is able to demonstrate the qualities of God, then the church that he would organize would therefore be the church of that God, and any other church would not be. And so under those conditions, the Book of Mormon is correct. But there's a lot of assumptions when you don't have the primary causation, the primary evidence. And so the church is deceiving Mormons through that process and trying to justify it with that Book of Mormon passage. Because the current Brigham Church here in Salt Lake City, Utah, stole the religion after Joseph was murdered and used his religion as the basis for making all the changes Brigham Young and successive presidents have made. And Mormons are clueless on this, because being born and raised in the Mormon church, for some reason we automatically think, oh, I guess it's true. I guess I'm privileged because I was born in the true church. And with great power comes great responsibility. Right, Spider-Man? Or Stan Lee, I guess, is the actual guy who made the quote. maybe. I'd have to Google that, I guess. And so, under a dichotomy categorization, you're able to brainwash followers by saying that everybody else is evil, we're the true people. And so everything you perceive in life that you experience with your senses is perceived under that dichotomous categorization. And so yes, you'll see it with whether you watch Republican news or Democrat news. Democrat news always complaining that Trump said things this way, Trump did things that way, and before Trump it was even that way. You'd see it under Obama. Democrats would be saying, oh, Obama did this, he's great, Obama did that, he's great, because he's a Democrat. And so the press only talks praises of the Democrat president. And if we'll get to the spectrum in a minute, because progressives are emerging under Democrats currently, whereas the Tea Party once emerged among Republicans previously. Mike Lee, for example, who voted for Trump, Mormon boy from Utah, representing the state of Utah, and allowing a monarchy. Way to go, Mike, for betraying your country and betraying Joseph Smith. He's a Tea Party member, for example. But it's never talked about anymore. It's like the Tea Party is gone. That's the spectrum, though. But dichotomy, I hope you understand how it works, is that whatever tribe they force you in, because they have primaries right now. If you want to participate in which one candidate is to run for your party, you need to get out there and vote, and you have to be a member of our party in order to be voting in the primary. So independents like me don't get to participate in the primary elections, and for good reason. The Constitution says no, we're not supposed to have any of this crap. But who wants to listen to the Constitution? After all, President Trump on Sunday night on Showtime's Our Cartoon President ripped up the Constitution right there in the rally. Love that show. But it'll be sad if Trump ever does go, because what will they do? I mean, yeah, they can have another president because it's our cartoon president, so it's just a new cartoon president. But anyway, and so in a dichotomy, you only think in terms of I'm a Mormon, therefore anybody who speaks critically of the church is an enemy, is an apostate, is of the devil, is the Antichrist, etc., etc., etc. And anybody who speaks positively, oh, the Book of Mormon is great, it's the greatest book ever, it's the most correct book on the face of the earth, and never mind the rest of the paragraph, the sentence, and oh yes, I just read, ponder, and pray, and ignore the actual interpretation of the passage, taking out the word manifest, and taking out power of, and so things get simplified to the point of error in order to protect and defend your tribal category. If you remember the color category from back in the day, those were spectrum. So we'll transfer into spectrum now. Non-dichotomous is what it's called in philosophy. This is where, if you remember the color categories, you answered some questions, and they seemed ridiculous, and many of them, if you were like me, didn't seem to apply to you, because you had other answers that weren't available for you to answer. This is what Facebook polled in the 2016 election, where you get to find out which Disney princess you are, asking you questions that have no relevance to Disney movies or the Disney characters. This is what the color spectrum did. And so what they were doing were forcing you into first a dichotomous categorization, then in a subcategory of the spectrum. And so with the colors, though, they allowed you to have all of the colors of the rainbow. And I turned out, depending on when I took the test and how I answered, because again, there were answers that it doesn't relate. I can't answer because it's not the right question. But I have to answer because the teacher says I have to answer in order to identify which color I am. And so I would fluctuate between white and blue, and sometimes I would be the white and blue. Those were spectrums that they were placing me in. And horoscopes, they do that also. They use your birthday to place you in the zodiac category, and then based upon your zodiac, they then tell you how you're supposed to be, and how you're supposed to act, and what you're supposed to do. And that's very dangerous if you get caught up in it and believe it, because that's the brainwashing that goes on in the spectrum. Is that you are being forced into a category, and then you're told that because you're that category, you now have to behave and act in a certain manner. And so thus Democrats complain about Republicans because they're not Democrats, and Republicans complain about Democrats because they're not Republicans, and Mormons complain about Christians because they're not Christian. And Christians complain about Mormons because they're not Christian. And so this is how it functions with the brainwashing method, whether it's dichotomous or spectrum. And so I hope that helps, so that you realize that you are being played as a chump when you allow yourself to say, I'm a Democrat, therefore I'm going to rebel against Republicans, or I'm a Republican and I'm going to rebel against Democrats, and we're going to go to war and we're going to shed blood and blah blah blah. That's how wars get started. We're all human. Nobody wants to factor that into the equation. So, alright. If I get any more updates, I'll do that. But, yeah, I'm frustrated with the news now. They're only talking about the primaries. We just lost America to a monarchy. And the Democrats are in denial. That's how they're acting. They're acting as if they're in denial that it ever occurred. We're just going to ignore it and hope that Trump doesn't do what he said he's going to do, which is what he's been doing this whole time. The election's rigged. No, the Democrats have no chance of winning. And it doesn't matter what polls they put up for 1,000 people that they talk to, when multi-hundreds of millions vote. But